Chapter 15. Little Bub Lost. It was unbelievable, this thing that had happened. Justin Morgan dropped out of Joel's life as completely as if he had been swallowed by quicksand. No one seemed to have any knowledge of his whereabouts. In desperation, the boy stopped every traveler who came to Chase's inn and carefully described the horse. Reddish brown, he would say, without any white markings at all, and his ears be extra small but pricked sharp, and he's less than 14 hands high, but he's big for his size. He would add pridefully. Always the answer was the same. Sorry, young feller. I call to mind big beasts aplenty, but no little critter like you describe. Almost daily, Joel questioned Robert Evans and the carpenter until both men hid behind any convenient object to avoid the boy's eyes. He pestered Nathan Nye, too, and Mr. Jenks and Mr. Fisk. He even wrote to Jonathan Foppington in New York, but no answer came. Months passed, and only garbled stories reached the inn. Justin Morgan was in the hands of a kindly blacksmith in Burlington, a cruel bricklayer at Montpelier, a horse breeder at Reigate. However, by the time the rumors were traced, the little horse had always moved on again, leaving only his colts behind. Several times, in tracking down clues, Joel was asked if he wouldn't like to buy one of these colts instead. At Reigate, he was tempted by an especially appealing foal with the Morgan look so strong in him that it made Joel catch his breath. Then the little one neighed, a kind of weak flutter, and Joel found himself thinking back to Bub's vigorous bugling, and he found himself living over again the long trip home from Springfield, and the night after night when he rode Bub over the hills, and the weeks and the months of gentling. No, thank you, sir, he said to the horse breeder. I'll just keep a looking. In spite of each disappointment, his faith never wavered that he would someday find the Morgan. And with each disappointment, Miller Chase drew closer to Joel. Tell you what, son, when your days as apprentice be over with, I'll take you on as a partner. I'll even let you build a barn of your own behind the mill and raise colts. That is, if ever you should find him. Often in imagination, Joel was in his own rough-made stable. He would be chewing on a wisp of sweet-smelling hay, while outside a spring rain drummed on the roof, and inside 3 brood mares nursed their foals. What tickled Joel the most was that in the far stall the Morgan looked on, big-eyed and proud. What did it matter if in the midst of Joel's dream Mistress Chase snapped a dish towel smartly across his face and gave her opinion of apprentices who had only half a mind on their work? Joel felt neither the sting of the towel nor the sting of the words, for the dream persisted. Days stretched out into long years. War came, and it tapped Joel on the shoulder. By this time, he was no longer an apprentice. He was a young man now, working as partner to Miller Chase, and he was free to enlist. The reasons for the war were only half clear to him. He had heard that British seamen were scrambling aboard American ships and forcing American sailors to help fight Napoleon. He had heard, too, that the English were threatening freedom of the seas. And so, on June 18, 1812, when the men in Washington declared war on Great Britain, Joel figured they probably knew what they were doing. When his thoughts were on war, he tried hard to think of the important things at stake, but he kept seeing the horses instead, seeing them charge into battle, face gunfire, seeing them fall half dead on the field with bullet wounds, and no one to care for them. What if little Bub were one of the wounded? Or what if he were the mount of some ruthless officer who cast him aside for a fresh horse rather than water and feed him? Joel was like a man with a fire burning inside him. His mind was made up. There was a small mounted force in the Vermont militia, and he would join it. But he would not go empty-handed, for he knew of the desperate need for all kinds of supplies. While other volunteers were saying long goodbyes with feasting and laughter, Joel worked and dripped sweat. He went from house to house, chopping wood, scrubbing and sanding floors, cleaning out stables, doing any task at all, if only the housewife would give him a wool blanket or water bucket in return. Warmth and water, that's what wounded horses need, he explained. When Joel had collected a goodly supply, he presented himself to the first sergeant of the small division of cavalry stationed at Rutland. The sergeant, a shoeing smith, was a jovial fellow, squatty as an apple tree, with shining seed-like eyes almost lost in wrinkles and folds. "Sergeant," Joel said, then stopped to put down the big bundle of freshly washed blankets and the stack of buckets. He remembered suddenly to salute. The smith returned the salute in amusement, but his eyes were busy, looking over the much-needed equipment, sizing up the earnest young man. He hooked his thumbs in the belt of his leather apron. "Reckon you had more to say, son." The words chuckled out as if whatever the young man had to say would be good. "Sergeant," Joel began a second time, I understand you doctor the sick and disabled horses and shoe the healthy ones." The smith nodded his bald head and smiled into the serious eyes. Joel hesitated. Could I help? I've a hankering to work with horses," he added quickly without explaining why. "Let's try you out then." And the smith heaved a great sigh, muttered a prayer, and bent down to gather up the blankets.